Hello, and thank you for being here today. My name is Kelsey, and today we're going to practice together a Yin Yoga class that hopefully you can use to cope with anxiety or possibly even calm some anxiety that you might be experiencing. So, if you're moving through anxiety right now, first of all, I just want you to know that I commend you, I bow to you for showing up for yourself today, getting on your mat and taking time to regulate yourself. That is truly the hardest part of the practice. And so let's all give ourselves a little pat on the back for doing that for ourselves today. I have been struggling living with anxiety for most of my adult life. I even struggled with it whenever I was a teenager and early teen. So I have really experienced firsthand how powerful a yoga practice can be for coping with general anxiety, and how it can teach us to cope with what we're feeling and what we're experiencing in a healthier way. So for our practice, the two things I really want us to focus on is, first of all, the way that we're breathing. I want us to try to make our exhales a little bit longer than the inhales, perhaps even practicing a 1-to-2 breath ratio. So your inhales would be, for example, a 3 or a 4 count, and then your exhales would be twice that. If that feels like it's a little bit too much, then I just invite you to try to make the exhales longer than the inhales, and this can really help to start to regulate the nervous system, engage the parasympathetic nervous system, stepping away from fight or flight. The other thing that I want us to focus on is the sensations that are happening in the body in each of the poses. So the poses that we're going to practice today might be some that are a little bit more sensational than others. I've found that many of the poses that we're going to do today are those poses that, it's hard to ignore what's happening in the body when you're in those poses. And this is on purpose because sometimes one of the most beneficial things that we can do for ourselves whenever we're experiencing anxiety is to turn the awareness less towards what's happening in the mind and more so towards what's happening in the body, and really grounding into those physical sensations. So with all of that said, again, thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and begin in tadpole, which is extended child's pose. So I'm going to come into a tabletop position, and I'm going to go ahead and pad my knees with a blanket. If you have a blanket, you're welcome to use it in the same way or in any other way that supports you. I also, as you can see, have blocks and a bolster. I just like to practice yin with my props nearby. You don't necessarily need those. Big toes touch. Knees are going wider than the width of the hips, maybe slightly wider than the mat, depending on where you're at in your body. Hips sit back towards the heels, and then extend your arms forward and lower your forehead down to your mat. Soften through your neck and the shoulders. Begin to connect with your breath. Right away, counting how long your inhale is. Trying to get your exhale to be a little bit longer. Sense the floor beneath you, the sensations of your hands on your mat, your forearms on your mat, the forehead on the mat. Feeling the contact point between your mat and your shins and the tops of your feet. Soften through the lower abdomen. Really begin to breathe low into the body, as though you're breathing in from the base of your spine. And as you exhale, surrendering more into the support beneath you. Sometimes when we have anxiety, it can come in the form of racing thoughts, shortened breath, an elevated heart rate. It can make our digestion a little bit upset. We might feel a tightness in the chest or in the shoulders, clenching the jaw. And I'm saying all of this just so you can start to observe what is going on in your body right now. Maybe you experience some of these or all of these or none of them at all. There's no right or wrong, just starting to notice what's going on inside. Actively lengthening our inhales, extending our exhales. One more breath in right here. And exhale, let go of some tension as you exhale through the mouth with a sigh. And then let's all lift the head looking towards the top of the mat and exhale to shift forward back into our tabletop position. Maybe you wiggle your hips side to side, take a moment to feel the release. And then we're moving into melting heart pose. Start by dropping your elbows down right where you had your hands and table. Make sure that the hips stay over the knees. And then extend your arms straight forward from there. And bring your forehead to the mat again. If this feels like it's too deep of a back bend, or you're feeling like a pinching in your neck or in your shoulders, go ahead and grab either a pillow, a block, or your bolster and bring it underneath your heart space. You want to be feeling a opening across the armpit, chest, the side of the ribs, and the shoulders. But you still want to be able to take those mindful inhales and longer exhales. And once again, noticing if you're clenching your jaw or knitting the eyebrows together. Soften the muscles in your face. And notice how that can ripple out into the rest of your body. Softening shoulders. Soften the belly. Inhaling for your count. Exhaling for longer or even twice that count. Anytime you get swept up in thoughts, worst case scenario, overthinking type of thoughts, come back to what's happening in your body. Come back to your breath. Another breath in here. And exhale, lift your head, press into your arms and your hands to lift yourself back up. Come into table again. Pause, feel the release. From here, we're going to move into a low dragon. So I'm going to use blocks. If you have blocks, you're welcome to bring them underneath the hands like how I'm doing. Starting on the lowest level, we'll step the right foot to the outside of the right hand and start to let the hips sink forward and down. You want to keep your knee over the ankle while letting the hips be heavy, looking for sensation in the front of the left hip. You're welcome to stay on your hands if you have hands on the blocks, or even if you have hands on the floor. If you do have blocks, maybe over time you bring the forearms or the elbows to those blocks. Doesn't need to happen right away. Resist the urge to go to 100%. Since we are going to be here for some time, it's important to give ourselves some space and ease into the sensation. This is already quite a sensational pose. Depending on your openness, your flexibility in your body today, some of you might be able to bring forearms to the mat eventually, but that's not necessarily the goal. A lot of the times whenever we're going through some anxiety, less is more. Once again, our priority here is the breath. Inhaling for your count. Exhaling longer than the inhale. With every exhale, softening a little bit more. Two more breaths. Next breath in, lift your head. Come on to your hands if you're not there already. And then let's shift the hips back for a moment, straighten the front leg, flex back through the right toes. Just getting a nice little counter stretch here. And then we can step that right knee back next to the left. And take a few breaths to move in any way that feels good to release that pose on this side. Another child's pose is always an option, or maybe just sitting back on the heels like how I'm doing here, just coming off of the hands and the arms for a moment. And let go of expectations. Moving with the breath. Inhale, come with hands onto the blocks. This time we're stepping left foot to the outside of the left hand and left block. Hips go heavy, starting at about 75% sensation. Over time, letting that grow. Over time, your body might invite you into a deeper variation. There's no reason to rush that. Always coming back to the breath. Can you breathe here with ease? And if the answer is no, you've likely gone a little bit too far. You need to back out a little bit. Notice if there's anywhere else in your body that you can unclench. Surrendering to the sensation. Ride the wave of your breath. One more breath in and out. We'll inhale, lift the head. Come onto the hands if you're not there already. And then let's shift the hips back to straighten that front leg any amount. Flex back through the toes. Enjoy a little counter stretch. As you're ready, stepping your left knee back into this table. You can move the blocks out of the way for now. Move in any way that feels good. Maybe take that extra child's pose or just a little bit of a rest, sitting back on the heels. And from here, we're coming around to a seat. So I'm going to move the blanket out from underneath my knees. Excuse the creaky old floors. This is a very old building that I teach in and record in. It was actually built in the mid-1800s. So I'm sitting up on my blanket. I just rolled it up a couple of times so that my hips are slightly elevated from the height of my knees. If you have a pillow or a bolster, you can use that as well. Extending our legs out into a wide V shape, going as wide as your body is telling you to, right? Not going to 100%, not chasing sensation, just paying attention to the sensation that is naturally there. I'm going to use blocks in front of my body so that as I start to lean forward, letting gravity pull me forward, I'm hinging at the hips and then letting my forearms come onto blocks. Head can be heavy. If having the head heavy is too much, pulling in the back of the neck, I invite you to bend your elbows and place your head on your thumbs. Return to your breath. If you're not using props, you can just keep your hands in front of you. And over time, perhaps letting the elbows be heavy towards the mat. Breathing in for your count. Breathing out longer than the inhale. As you continue to soften and let go, perhaps gravity feels a little bit heavier and you fold a little bit deeper. Not a requirement, just an observation that you might make. Take another breath in wherever you are. Exhale with a sigh. Breathe in, lift your head. Start to lift yourself onto your hands, lifting your head over your heart over the hips. A little pause here just to feel the release in the back and in the legs. Feeling the residue of the pose. Fluttering eyelids open. For our last couple of poses, we'll come down onto our backs. So bending the knees in, And then turning yourself to facing one of the shorter edges of your mat, moving any props that you were using on your mat out of the way. And then slowly reclining down. And I'm just going to move my hair clip off to the side so that it's not bothering me. Take a moment in your constructive rest. Feel the lower back soften into the mat. And feel your feet grounding down. One of my favorite yoga teachers always says that your yoga mat has your back. Really sensing into that right now. The support system that you have through your yoga practice whenever things are really hard. Moving into our reclined twist, let's pull the right knee in and extend the left leg out long. Open your right arm out beside you and then guide your right leg over to the left. Thinking about stacking the right hip over the left hip. And then if there's any pulling in the outside of the knee or the outside of the hip, see how it would feel to place a prop, whether it's a block, a pillow, folded up blanket, underneath the right leg so that you have something to rest that leg on. If that still feels like that pulling on the outside of the knee, then bend both knees instead and twist them towards the left. Being sure that you can soften here and breathe easily. Take another breath in As you exhale, feel your lower abdomen drawing back slightly and let that help you roll towards your back and return to a constructive rest pose for a moment before we do that on the opposite side. Notice any differences between your right and left sides. And then we'll move to the next side, left knee in, right leg long. Open the left arm out and guide your left leg over to the right. Maybe grabbing your block again, placing it underneath your right leg somewhere, left leg. And if there's any pulling in the outside of the left leg or the left knee, bending both of the knees. Breathing into the front of the heart space, into that opening that's happening in the front of the collarbones. Every exhale, letting go of any tightness that's there. Imagining it leaving with the breath as it moves out. Another breath in. Exhale and melt your back towards your mat. Both feet return to your mat into your constructive rest. And take a moment, notice if there's any other movements or poses that would feel good to your body before we go into Shavasana for a little bit of time. Maybe tick-tocking your knees side to side, or hugging the knees in. Eventually setting yourself up in the way that's the most comfortable for you. So for me, that is a blanket underneath my head and a bolster underneath my knees. You do what works for your body, and please resist the urge to close off the video here unless you just plan on resting longer in silence. Our Shavasana is arguably the most important part of our practice. Time to let the nutrients of the practice settle in, kind of like digesting after a big meal. Let go of the breath control here. Soften or close your eyes. You'll hear my voice when it's time to come back into your space. Enjoy your Shavasana. Remaining just as you are, start to bring your awareness back to your breath. Begin to wiggle fingers and toes when you're ready, maybe nodding your head side to side. And eventually, perhaps these movements expand into a big full body stretch, breathing in, breathing out. And then you can bend your knees in towards your body, giving yourself another big hug, rock a little bit side to side. And then roll over to whichever side is most comfortable for you. Extend the top leg to help yourself roll up. Coming up to take a comfortable seat, there's no hurry. Just taking these last few moments sitting upright to observe the imprint of our practice today. How has your practice affected you? Has anything changed from the moment that you got onto your mat to right now? And there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong, just notice what has happened. And then bring palms together in front of the heart space. Take a moment to feel gratitude for yourself for choosing this time. Choosing to go inward, connect with your breath, and regulate your nervous system. Feel gratitude for the practice and how it can support us through even the toughest moments of life. And we'll close by taking a chant of Om together. Wherever you are with your breath, empty out the lungs, breathe out. Take a breath in through your nose. And exhale to chant. Om. Thank you so much for being here today and trusting me with your practice. I hope that this practice served you well. Please let me know how it went for you in the comments down below. give me any suggestions that you might have for a future class. I love to hear them. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I release new classes every single Sunday completely for free. And sometimes I even throw in a special one throughout the week for fun or for special occasions. So with all of that said, I hope that we can practice together again very soon. And until then, namaste.